Tonight, hear the stunning new legal twist as a witness admits he lied on the stand in a grisly kidnapping case.
For the first time tonight, you're going to see a startling tape. Could it free a man who's now behind bars? 2020 begins right now.
Somebody has my daughter. They have kidnapped her. Please get everybody in the community out there.
Everybody trying to say, it's okay, Karen, this is all just a mistake. But see, they didn't know what I knew that morning.
Nursing student Holly Bobo.
Last seen being dragged away from her home by a man in camouflage.
He said, stop, 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 leave me alone, stop. But she never called out his name.
Just hours after Holly Bobo disappeared, more than 400 people turned up here to search these woods.
Holly, I love you so much. Please try to get home to us.
I just remember it was madness. Cops everywhere, helicopters flying. It was already crazy.
We were looking at everybody. Everybody was looked at.
When did someone kind of pull away from the rest?
He said if somebody like him had got Holly, she's just a toy to him. And it's all fantasy world.
Dennis Benjamin says, there's a man on my porch who has just confessed to the kidnapping of Holly Bobo.
Do you think the jury got this one wrong?
Absolutely. Yep. Innocent people are in prison.
Please help us find her.
This is the Tennessee River. On its western bank is Decatur County, a patchwork of sparsely populated farms, dense woods, and neighbors who look out for each other.
It's a rural county with a cute little small town, Parsons. Very close to the Tennessee River.
A lot of cattle farming and crop farming.
Hunting, fishing, boating.
People that like to live out in the country, they have some animals or some horses.
There's not a lot of industry in Decatur County.
I started to say it might be compared to Mayberry, but it's nothing like that. We do have crime just like every other town in America, but we are rural. Everybody pretty much knows everybody. Everybody knew Holly and her family.
20-year-old Holly Bobo came from a loving family. She lived with her mother, Karen, father, Dana, and her older brother, 25-year-old Clint, in a home her dad built with his own hands.
It was your typical little single story, 3 bedrooms, kitchen was in the middle kind of, and then a little small living room. And they had a carport there, which is a 2-car carport to the back of the house.
They're typical middle-class, hard-working country folks. Holly's dad, he had an excavating business, and her mother was a school teacher.
Holly and I were very close, and we were about 5 years apart.
Holly was raised like my little sister, and Clint was like my little brother. We were always growing up together.
We just lived in our own world, 2 kids in college. We had our church family, our family gatherings, went to the movies together, rode 4-wheelers together, rode horses.
The Bobo kids grew up with a sense of caring for their community. Clint is studying to become a social worker, and Holly is attending nursing school.
They're the best people on earth. That's what hurt so bad, that this happened to them. They didn't do anything that would have put them in harm's way of having this to happen. It just doesn't happen to people like them.
It was just a normal morning like anything else. Dana gets up first and gets ready.
Well, I usually go out and feed the dog.
Dana says Holly is already up, studying for a big test later that day.
I asked her if she needed any money, I think, for gas or whatever that day. She said, yeah, and I left her some money on the bar. I left out my regular time, 5:30 or something like that, and went on to work.
Karen wakes up a short time later.
So I went on about my business, getting ready. I'd packed her lunch like I always did. She was sitting at the kitchen table studying, and I kissed her goodbye and told her I loved her, just like every other morning. And I left.
Around 7:45, a neighbor was getting ready to go to work. He heard a scream from next door.
She said, "Stop, stop, stop, leave me alone, stop," but she never called out his name.
It made such an impression on him. He told his mother that he heard somebody screaming over at the Bobo's house.
That neighbor calls Karen Bobo at work, worried, saying, "We heard a scream coming from your house."
That's just not a call you get every day, so I instantly knew something was wrong.
Holly's brother Clint, who is asleep in the house, doesn't hear the scream, but he wakes up to the family dog, Rascal, barking.
He just continued to bark, so I decided to get up, to see what he was barking at. As I was approaching that window, I heard people talking, voices. I could tell it was a male and a female voice. I never was able to really tell what they were saying.
There's a side window next to the kitchen that faces the carport, which of course is an open carport.
Clint looks into the carport. He sees Holly and another person kneeled down in a catcher stance.
So I could see enough to tell that it was Holly and a man in camouflage who I identified as Drew, who is her boyfriend.
At first he thought it was Holly and her boyfriend and they were arguing. He didn't want to get involved in it, so he stepped away and let them do whatever they were doing. At that point, he sent his mom a text and asked, "Does Holly not have school today?"
And I said, "Well, her and Drew are out here in the garage." I expected Drew to be dressed in camouflage because Drew and I had talked the night before, and he told me he was going turkey hunting that morning.
But there were some things that Clint didn't know that his mother knew. Drew was at least 30 minutes drive away.
Drew was hunting on my mom's property in southern Decatur County.
Right away, her instincts told her, that's terribly wrong.
I would say like 20 seconds later, I received a phone call from her. She says, "Call all the neighbors." "Oh my God, Clint, that's not Drew."
I said, "That's not Drew. Get a gun and shoot him."
Miss Karen is saying, "Shoot him, get your gun and shoot him." He's like, what are you talking about? You want me to shoot Drew? He just woke up. He wasn't comprehending everything that was going on.
And I said, "So you want me to shoot Drew?" And I think that's when she must have hung the phone up.
I just hung up, and I collapsed to the floor.
He said he went and got his gun, and he looked out the back window of the kitchen, and he saw that Holly was walking with a man in camouflage.
At that point is when I could see them. They were walking towards the woods, and there's a trail that Holly and I are both very familiar with. That trail leads you to a logging road. And they looked like they were walking right toward that trail. She was walking on her own. She didn't appear to be hurt, and still thinking it's Drew. And I'm watching them as they're walking toward this trail.
As Clint Bobo is watching his sister Holly and this man in camouflage disappear into the woods, back at work, Karen Bobo knows something is really wrong.
And everybody trying to say, "It's okay, Karen, this is all just a mistake." But see, they didn't know what I knew that morning. It couldn't be Drew, and that the neighbor had heard a scream. And so my friend, she grabbed my hand, pulled me up, and we headed out of the building. She hands me her phone.
911, what's your emergency?
Somebody has my daughter. They have kidnapped her. And somebody in full camouflage got Holly. Please get everybody in the community out there.
They're on their way, sweetie. I've got everybody on their way right now already.
Oh, my God.
In the hours and days that follow, thousands of people will come to this small town, all asking the same question. Where is Holly Bobo? A quiet spring morning in the country interrupted by a scream. Then, a deafening silence. 20-year-old Holly Bobo vanished from her own backyard, and her family is in anguish.
Holly was an absolute joy from the day she was born. It just seemed like there was something special about her. She was always kind to people and appreciated the small things in life.
Holly's mother says she shares a special bond with her only daughter.
We could finish each other's sentences. We enjoyed doing the same things, riding horses, listening to the radio.
Holly's cousin, country singer Whitney Duncan, says music has always been a passion for Holly.
We had singing in common for sure, and she had a beautiful voice. Peace in the Valley was her favorite gospel song. I have that clip and go back and watch it.
Following graduation from high school, Holly has her eye on the future, studying hard to become a nurse.
Holly and I ended up in the same nursing class in Parsons, and so I really got to know her. She was very committed to the program. You could just tell. She studied continuously. On the day that she went missing, we got to class and we're supposed to take a test the first thing. The instructor went out and came back, and she announced that something terrible had happened. I'm sorry. And so we immediately dispersed, went to the area, started searching.
When tragedy strikes, Decatur County comes together. On April 13, 2011, just hours after Holly Bobo disappeared, more than 400 people turned up here to search these woods, trying to help find any clue as to what happened to the 20-year-old nursing student.
The search response was almost immediate. By 8:30, half the neighborhood was out there.
I've seen 800 people out here today.
These guys here is going to be the team leaders.
Group 1 is this, so it'd be Group 2 that's down here.
By 10, half the county was there.
Holly, I love you so much. Please try to get home to us. And if anybody knows anything about her, please help us find her.
So when you first get there on the scene, what was it like there?
Everybody was involved trying to determine what happened to Holly Bobo. It was just a chaotic scene of following leads with hundreds of people involved.
Just anybody that can help, just come on and help us, please.
You know, Tennessee's known as the volunteer state, and that's what happened. Just about every county in half of Tennessee was there, from Memphis to beyond Nashville.
If you see anything that is not right, call me.
There are people on horseback, ATVs.
There were posters on telephone poles. There were posters throughout the county.
Pink ribbons and pictures of Holly Bobo are posted all over the small, tight-knit community of Parsons.
So it becomes a pretty big story right away.
Is everybody ready?
It grew exponentially.
We want to just bring everybody up to speed.
When the days went on and there was no more signs of Holly.
Got a lot of ground left to cover still.
First, you had the local stations.
It's been almost a week since Holly was last seen outside her family's home.
From Jackson, from Decatur County, from Nashville and Memphis coming in. And then you had the national people coming in.
And now we have the latest on the desperate hunt for Tennessee nursing student Holly Bobo.
Last seen being dragged away from her home by a man in camouflage.
We're going to begin with the urgent search for a young woman gone missing.
In addition to thousands of volunteers, law enforcement from across the country came to tiny Parsons to help in the search.
Decatur County Sheriff's Office, who responds with multiple deputies. They called in the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. The TBI came in with dozens of agents. They called in the U.S. Marshals and the FBI.
This was the biggest investigation in the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation history. That almost every agent in the whole Tennessee Bureau had some type of involvement in it.
This is where our virtual command center is. We've really been concentrating from Holly's house north up to I-40.
We're talking about a distance of about 8 miles?
Yes.
They brought in bloodhounds and so forth, and they tracked a set towards that bigger pond. They had divers, and they walked that pond, and they looked and they didn't find anything.
There were several times I took agents out in my patrol boat and looked at places on the river.
So I just remember it was madness. Cops everywhere, helicopters flying. It was already crazy. And for me, it was just surreal.
I just want her back.
Thank you.
While authorities focus on the search, the crime scene itself reveals very little in the way of physical evidence. A footprint and spots of blood in the carport where Clint last saw his sister.
There's two little steps that go into the carport. Her Mustang was parked in the first slot and the blood was found right in front of it. One of them was about the size of a fist. The other ones were much smaller, maybe a quarter sized or dime sized.
And it was determined to be hers. The discovery of the blood obviously is disheartening. It indicates she's at least injured. She was at least bleeding when she was taken away.
The working theory? Whoever took Holly had to be familiar with the area and know the Bobo's schedule.
We feel that she knew that she was in fear of her life, so she was complying with his command.
It might have been somebody close, somebody that kind of knew our routine of when I left, when she left, and when my daughter left to go to school.
In our minds, besides the very few people we were the closest to, anybody could have been a suspect.
As the list of possible suspects grows, authorities begin to wonder if the abductor could be even closer to home than the Bobos realize.
There were a lot of people that felt them telling the truth would be the secret to solving this case.
It's been almost a week since Holly was last seen.
20-year-old nursing student who reportedly was abducted from her home a week ago today.
Abducted from her home 6 days ago.
Weeks after 20-year-old Holly Bobo is abducted from her home, investigators still don't know who took her. But thanks to cell phone tracking technology, they say they know where she was taken.
So you mapped out where you thought her cell phone went?
Yes.
So where do you think her phone went as she was leaving her home?
It went straight north.
Can we look at the map?
Absolutely. Okay. So they go north, about 32, 33 miles an hour, the red dotted area, and then it travels this way.
Volunteers searching along the mapped out route find some of Holly's personal items, including her cell phone.
We were going down the side of the road on each side of Highway 641, just kind of in the ditches, walking elbow to elbow. And we found the phone there.
They found her notebook, they found her lunchbox, they found her school papers, and that essentially followed the same path of the GPS tracking of her cell phone.
It's confirmation they are looking in the right place, but that doesn't make the search any easier.
The massive investigation has turned up nearly 300 new leads, but still no Holly. Volunteers say they don't plan on stopping until she is found.
It's just unbearable. I can't hardly imagine. We are those people. We became those people that no one ever wants to be.
The Bobos are living a nightmare, and it's only about to get worse. Once viewed as victims, they're now being viewed as suspects.
Did she know her alleged abductor?
Yes, there were a lot of people that felt Clint was lying, felt very strongly that Clint was lying, and that Clint telling the truth would be the secret to solving this case.
I've heard countless times that if I would have been that, I mean, I'm talking, sometimes people said this to my face, you know, if I had been that brother, I would have went out there, you know, I would have done something. They just don't understand the way that this event played out.
The TBI, the FBI, and the U.S. Marshals interviewed Clint Bobo multiple times over several weeks, asking him over and over what he knows about his sister's disappearance.
Just question after question after question, and detail after detail, you know, just trying to pull any information they could out of me, which I understand is what they're supposed to do. I just wanted to be as helpful as I could, but I was willing to do whatever they asked me to do.
I interviewed Clint Bobo on several occasions, sometimes several hours at a time I spent with him, and I never, ever had Clint Bobo dishonest. I found him very trustworthy, and he never changed his story of what happened.
Clint's cell phone data backs up his story. he never left the Bobo home that morning.
The cell phone data, Holly was moving the whole time Clint's been here. The police were there at 8:10, and Holly's cell phone moved for another hour and 15 minutes. Clint couldn't have been involved in moving, or somebody else would have had to have been involved too.
I just wish I had known more. I wish I had known that the neighbor called Mom at school. I wished I had known that the neighbor heard a scream. I wished I had known that Drew was turkey hunting. I didn't have the information that I needed.
It will take several years, but Clint is eventually cleared, as are all the Bobo family members and Holly's boyfriend, Drew Scott. Meanwhile, as the investigation is seemingly going nowhere, the Bobo family is increasingly frustrated.
Until your child is found or you know what happened to them, I don't think anyone could ever do enough in a parent's eyes.
There was all kinds of leads coming in. We were looking at everybody. Everybody was looked at.
When did someone kind of pull away from the rest?
There was a point in the investigation to where the FBI agent and Dicus, the TBI agent, come up with a suspect.
And who was that guy?
Terry Britt.
He spent the majority of his life in prison for kidnapping and rape.
He was on that list of local people that were sexual predators. And of course, we ran his name. And Terry Britt, right away, he fit the description that Clint gave. He was about 5'10", 11.
I estimated him to be about 5'10" and about 200 pounds. I guess it was just assumed, you know, that he had black hair or dark brown. It just kind of blended in with his camouflage clothing.
Terry Britt fits the description. He knows the routes. He lives at the end of the route where stuff was thrown out. And he has a strong history in this kind of behavior.
According to Terry Dicus, Terry Britt did have, for lack of a better term, a type. He liked pretty blonde, blue-eyed girls, and Holly fit that type.
Agent Dicus wants to talk to Britt, and he has no trouble tracking him down. Britt is locked up on another charge. Dicus records the conversation with him.
How you doing?
Getting in there. While Britt says he has an alibi and denies having anything to do with Holly Bobo's abduction, he spoke hypothetically about who may have done it and why.
He said if somebody like him had got Holly, she's just a toy to him, and it's all fantasy world.
She's young, pretty, perfect, somewhat body.
Yeah.
Okay, like a toy, some people would think. See, this man, when he goes and gets this female, then he's going to go snatch her up. He can't wait to get her to wherever he's going to take her to, because he's wanting that body.
He's living in this fantasy. He's got this perfect girl, and he's got to get to that body as quick as he can. But as soon as he gets done, now reality sinks in.
Well, here comes reality. Now I've got a body. What am I going to do with it? Because if you keep it, you got to feed it.
Right.
You got to hide it. It ain't going to happen. And if you kill it, what you going to do with it? I mean, there's no way.
The first time I interviewed him, I was like, oh my God, this guy did it. This guy did it.
But the Bobo investigation is about to take a turn.
I've been hearing about these guys.
In the investigation, they were brought up early and often.
Is a new prime suspect about to take center stage?
He would tell people, you're going to end up in a hole just like Holly.
Months into their investigation, no arrests have been made, but TBI agent Terry Dicus is convinced he has his guy.
We conducted 1,000 interviews. We looked at 5 counties around. Terry Britt's the one. It's either this guy or we have no idea who. There were some disagreements, some very heated disagreements at the TBI. It was just the argument, you don't have enough proof for it. You can't prove that he did it. That's what I was faced with, and I was taken off the investigation.
With new TBI agents now taking the lead, they clear Terry Britt and go back to sifting through all those tips that have been gathered over the years.
As investigators dig into this case, a variety of possible suspects emerge, but one group of men well known to law enforcement becomes the focus of their investigation.
I've been hearing about these guys, that people are saying they're into all kinds of things, stealing things.
They were friends, 4 guys, Zach Adams, Dylan Adams, Jason Autry, and Shane Austin. All 4 were suspects separately.
Zach had criminal histories. Dylan had drug charges. Jason Autry had a history of theft and drug charges. Shane Austin admittedly had a drug problem. They all had that common link of having a criminal past.
Tell me about your son, Shane.
He was just the life of the party. He was just a fun person to be around. But he had a problem.
Between his 9th and 10th grade year of high school, he dislocated his shoulder playing football. I think the opioid stuff started after his first surgery. He wanted to not be addicted to drugs. He tried not to be addicted to drugs for a long time.
Jimmy and Rita Austin had given Shane a place to live, a little trailer to live in that was down the road from their family home.
Their last names all started with A, and the locals referred to them as the A train. They were known for getting in trouble.
In the investigation, they were brought up early and often by people that know that they're into drugs. Zach would tell people, you're going to end up in a hole just like Holly. Comments everywhere that normal people would not make.
And in the early days of the investigation, Holly's mother, Karen, thought these guys could know something, given what they had been heard saying around town. So she tracked them down herself.
I asked them, did they know anything about our daughter's abduction? Of course, they all denied it.
She was kind of doing her own investigation. I mean, she came here and asked to talk to Shane.
I guess I would have fought Goliath. You know, I just had no fear. I was trying to find my daughter.
And at the time of Holly's abduction, witnesses tell investigators that before she went missing, Shane Austin crossed paths with her at a local raccoon hunting festival.
The story was that Shane had seen Holly Bobo at the coon hunt and that he'd kind of followed her around like a stalker.
Did you hear anything about that?
I guess we heard that rumor. We heard that he was trying to take a picture of her and pretending like he was talking on the phone. But now Shane only had a flip phone, so I don't think you could hold that flip phone up to your head and take a picture of somebody, but that's what we heard.
Investigators followed up on this story. Within a week of Holly's disappearance, they showed up at the Austins' property wanting to speak with Shane.
They come and brought the dogs and come down and search Shane's trailer, and that was the start of it.
Throughout their investigation, authorities say they never found evidence at the Austins' property that connected him to Holly Bobo.
Were you surprised that they were down there?
Yes. I mean, I know Shane had drug issues, and that's what I told the TBI guy when he come to the gate down there. And I said, hey, if she'd been made of morphine, I'd said you come to the right place. But no way.
And then, 2 years later, with those new agents on the case, authorities zeroed back in on the Adams brothers, Jason Autry and Shane Austin.
At what point did you realize that he might be in trouble with all of this?
When they come back at 6 o'clock in the morning and tooting the horn, so we went down and opened the gate and let them in, and they said, we're down here to get this over with, so we want Shane.
That's when they wanted to know where the body was at. The TBI met with Shane and they got that immunity deal.
Investigators offered Shane immunity to cooperate and tell them what he knew about his friend's involvement in Holly Bobo's abduction.
You take an immunity deal, hey, you've done something. You've done something. But the lawyer said, if you don't do it, they're going to arrest him. They've done told me they're going to arrest him. And he said, it's going to cost thousands of dollars. So us three, we talked and we agreed.
We talked hard.
We talked hard.
We talked hard. If you got any part of this, you better be telling it.
Shane Austin had nothing at all to do with this.
So Shane Austin takes the deal, but when he sits down with investigators, they're disappointed.
They was very unhappy because he didn't know where the body was at.
According to authorities, all he can tell them is that he too has heard Zach Adams make incriminating comments about what happened to Holly.
There was talk that Zach had blurted out, "I'm going to do you like I did to Holly."
But Shane also said that he didn't believe that Zach was telling the truth. He thought that Zach was just boasting.
But investigators believe Shane knows more than he's telling, and they revoke that immunity deal.
I was scared for my son. If the TBI wasn't here, they was calling him, harassing him. So we didn't have any peace.
I don't know if it was them calling him or whatever, but anyway, his drug use just escalated, and that's from that. So, and Christmas was the last time we seen him.
Shane's parents say his life continued to spiral, and in 2015, he died by suicide.
Shane opened that door to addiction. They just grabbed him and pulled him in, and this time it pulled him in for real. Wasn't gonna let him go.
Authorities have lost one cooperating witness, but they're about to get a new one.
Go through. You ain't gonna be spared of nobody now. Ain't no reason to be spared of nobody.
Could what he has to say finally explain what happened to Holly Bobo? More than 2 years after Holly Bobo disappeared, investigators are still searching for answers. Rumors about 4 local small-time criminals, Zach Adams, his brother Dylan Adams, Jason Autry, and Shane Austin, have failed to lead to any hard evidence. But in 2014, investigators catch a break when Dylan Adams is arrested on unrelated gun charges.
When he was arrested this time, it was big. This guy that he had been hanging with was a convicted felon, and they had a couple guns on them and drugs. So he got in trouble for having the firearms around a felon.
They had him in a federal holding facility up in northwest Tennessee.
While Dylan Adams is incarcerated on these gun charges, investigators speak with him at least 6 times over 8 months, and he seems to implicate his brother Zach and Jason Autry in the kidnapping and murder of Holly Bobo.
I had to go through the TBI to make sure my son was still alive, still safe, and each time that I spoke with him, there was no indication that he was being interrogated. He has no concept of what is really going on.
Dylan's family says he has intellectual disabilities.
Dylan was slow. He really was.
Dylan would have a hard time completing a simple task. Maybe a little slow in reading, comprehending, things like that.
According to court documents, Dylan eventually pleads guilty to lesser federal charges and is released, but not into the custody of his mother. In fact, she says she couldn't even see him because of the conditions of his release.
I was told that I would not be able to contact him, or he would not be able to contact me. I think safe house was the word that they used, because Dylan was their key witness and he had to be protected. I had no idea where he was going.
As it turns out, prosecutors arranged for Dylan Adams to be released into the custody of a private citizen and former Memphis police officer named Dennis Benjamin.
Dennis Benjamin takes him back to his house for several weeks.
Is this normal for someone to be released into the custody of someone that they don't know that's a law enforcement person?
It's real strange, that's for sure.
We reached out to the prosecutor in that case about Dennis Benjamin's involvement, and they would not comment.
And while Dylan Adams is there, a huge break in the case, the moment the Bobo family had been dreading for years.
The 3-year and 5-month search for Holly had come to an end. 2 men searching for ginseng found her remains Sunday morning off a Country Corner Road in Holiday.
Holly's skull was found with a single gunshot. Among the remains, some of her schoolwork, her sandals, and her promise ring from her boyfriend, Drew Scott.
It was just a miracle she was found. Because to this day, as broken as my heart is so broken for those people that still don't have that, because I don't think I could have kept going.
And just weeks later, the Decatur County Sheriff's Office receives a shocking phone call. The caller is Dennis Benjamin, telling them that Dylan Adams, still in his custody, has just confessed to taking part in the kidnapping and murder of Holly Bobo.
You'll have your seat right there if you don't mind.
Dylan Adams is brought in to speak with TBI agents, and through halting one-word answers, he tells them that he, Zach Adams, Jason Autry, and Shane Austin committed the crime together.
You came forward to Dennis and told him some things that are above and beyond what you've ever told me or Brent about this case, right? Yes. Okay. Describe what was she doing, what did she look like, what was she wearing, she had long pants on, pink shirt, very fat. Remember that? Okay.
Dylan says that all 4 men sexually assaulted Holly at Zach's house.
And now you're saying that Shane Austin is sitting there. You're sitting there. Jason Autry is sitting there. And Zach. Is there anybody else involved? Was Holly Bobo kidnapped? Was she raped? Raped by you?
I just see someone being bullied into saying something they didn't do. I think that he was just trying to get through it.
You withheld information. That ain't how this works.
He was in a federal holding facility for almost 2 years. The TBI agents there pounded him, and he never, ever once said, I raped Holly. And then he's moved to this Dennis Benjamin's house, and suddenly he's raped Holly.
We attempted to contact Dennis Benjamin, but we were unable to reach him.
She was shot in the back of the head. How did that happen? How much blood was on the floor? What was ever done to clean that up? As far as I know, just the rat. After her, I don't know.
Armed with Dylan's confession and a search warrant, investigators go to Zach Adams' house looking for any physical evidence to corroborate his story.
They come to the door there and asked me, said, you want to unlock it or you want us to tear the door down? And they knocked a hole in it to see what was back there, I reckon. Tore the fan down as they was tearing the floor out. They used my pick and things to tear this out with, but they cut it out with a saw.
And the story he was raping her and attacking her in the house. Well, they pulled up floorboards, they DNA tested all the couch and the bed and everything, never found nothing.
We reached out to the TBI and they declined to answer specific questions about this case.
In my heart of hearts, I know my boys, they're drug addicts. They're not murderers.
But despite a lack of evidence, authorities believe that's exactly what they are. Zach Adams, Jason Autry, and Dylan Adams are eventually all indicted for murder.
Decatur County Grand Jury handed down indictment of especially aggravated kidnapping and first-degree felony murder.
With all 3 heading to trial, the state announces that it will seek the death penalty. And Jason Autry proclaims his innocence to anyone who will listen.
Innocent man falsely accused.
And tonight, for the first time, you'll hear from Zach Adams in his own words.
I have no need to lie.
And the brand new development that Adams hopes may finally exonerate him.
If you go play with him, you might as well go all the way.
All right, we're ready to continue.
A nursing student who was last seen being dragged away from her home by a man in camouflage.
Holly, I love you so much.
The Bobos are living a nightmare, and it's only about to get worse.
I know that my daughter begged for her life. Look at me, please. You have shown absolutely no remorse.
But is she saying that to someone who's innocent?
Why do you think you guys became suspects in this case? There were a lot of people at your trial that testified that you had made comments and that you had killed Holly Bobo.
I don't think they're capable of kidnapping a woman and keeping it secret for 2 years. I don't think they're capable of doing arithmetic.
Raise your right hand, please.
Did a key witness lie on the stand?
He said, I need you to help me bury this body. He said, that's Holly Bobo.
Now, video never seen before of that same crucial witness
If you go play with it, you might as well go all the way.
changing his story.
So we went all the way.
What does he tell you?
Tells me he made the whole thing up.
Why would someone admit to killing someone if they didn't do it?
Circuit Court, Hardin County, Tennessee is now in session pursuant to adjournment. The Honorable C. Creed McGinley presiding. God bless the United States, the state of Tennessee, the county of Hardin, and this honorable court. You may be seated.
It's been 6 years since Holly Bobo was taken. 6 years since she died. Everybody, judge, jury, prosecution, defense, gathered inside this courthouse. It's September, but it's stuffy. The jurors are sweating, people fanning themselves in the Tennessee heat, and no one has a hotter seat than the defendant, Zach Adams.
He's charged with kidnapping, murdering, and raping Holly Bobo.
He could face the death penalty if convicted.
In this case, State of Tennessee versus Zachary Wright Adams. State ready to proceed.
We are, Your Honor.
Defendant ready to proceed.
Yes, sir.
Zach Adams has put on a suit and a lot of weight. He is the only defendant in this trial. His friend Shane Austin died by suicide. Co-defendants Jason Autry and Dylan Adams expected to stand trial later.
Zach was the one that the state of Tennessee thought was the most culpable, so they chose to try him first.
Hello, this is a prepaid call from an inmate at the Tennessee Department of Corrections.
Hello.
Hey, Zach, this is Eva. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Adams does not testify, but years later, he tells us his story in his first interview ever.
What do you say to all those people who think you're guilty?
Where's the evidence? There's not one single piece of evidence.
Did you think you were going to get off?
Well, I knew I was innocent. When you're innocent, it doesn't matter. You're thinking, yeah, of course you're thinking you're going to come home because you're innocent.
He took her, he raped her, killed her, he covered it up, he bragged about it, and he almost got away with it, but he didn't, because we're here.
No. He did not murder Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not kidnap Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not abduct Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not rape Holly. And do you remember?
Karen Bobo knew the man, now accused of killing her daughter, when he was just a boy.
Did you know Zach Adams?
I had Zach in the 4th grade. I was his 4th grade school teacher.
The very first day, you have Holly's mother basically fall out on the stand during her testimony.
Take just a minute, I'm feeling sick.
Let's take the witness test. I want everyone to remain with me while the jury files out, please. Got a nurse.
Holly's father also testifies.
What day did you give up hope for the very first time?
And about 3 years into it, give or take,
TBI come to our house, told us that was Holly, that Holly had been found. That was her remains.
I'm going to ask you to look at this picture. You recognize it?
Prosecutors produced the alleged murder weapon. It's a .32 caliber revolver witnesses claim was owned by Zach Adams' friend, Shane Austin, and it was recovered in a drainage ditch just months before the trial.
We located a metal object that was later identified as a revolver.
A parade of no fewer than 9 witnesses testify that over the years, Adams, often while on drugs or in jail, made incriminating statements.
He said, "I'll kill you like I did Holly Bobo."
He made the comment, "I couldn't have picked a prettier bitch."
He just had a couple of his friends, you know, they got drunk and they went into the woods with this girl, and then he was like, you know, I was there for the worst of it. And I was like, well, did you do it? And he was like, I was there for the worst of it, and he just left it like that.
Somebody that would brag about that, my God, that's the devil's work. You don't do that.
Did you say those things?
My life used to revolve around drugs and selling drugs and stuff. So if I could get people intimidated or make them think that, you know, fear me or whatever. So I said things that I shouldn't have said, but I never directly said I did this to Holly.
The prosecution and defense each call a cell phone expert. Both agree Adams and the other suspects' phones did not hit cell towers near the Bobo home at the time Holly was taken.
At the time of this abduction, do we have any idea where Zach Adams' phone is, where Shane Austin's phone is, where Dylan Adams' phone is, or where Jason Autry's phone is? No.
The prosecution expert says it's possible Holly and Zach Adams' phones were in the same general locations later that morning, but the defense expert disagrees.
In very general terms, the devices were not together at the same location at the same time during that morning.
Did you kill Holly Bobo?
Absolutely not.
Why do you think you guys became suspects in this case?
We didn't have a hard alibi, and we was local, you know, drug users and stuff, and would it matter putting us away? I felt like they had to arrest somebody, even if it was the wrong person, which it was.
As the trial continues, astonishing testimony. A witness you might think would be the last person to believe Adams is innocent.
I looked at Zach personally a total of 2 or 3 times. Whenever the last one was over with, I stopped looking at him.
And a stunning courtroom appearance. That former suspect with a theory of what Holly's killer was thinking.
You gotta hide it, and if you kill it, what you gonna do with it?
Terry Britt, the man investigators say they cleared, is about to take the stand.
All right, we're ready to continue. Defense ready to proceed? State ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
All right, call your next.
Terry Dykes.
The prosecution of Zach Adams for the murder of Holly Bobo, not surprisingly, features plenty of law enforcement witnesses. That's standard.
What is unusual, the defense calls 6 current and former law enforcement witnesses, including the TBI's very own former lead investigator, Terry Dykes.
The determination I made is that he could not have been involved in the kidnapping.
Is it really unusual for law enforcement?
Absolutely, it's unusual. I've never testified for the defense. No, it doesn't happen. Law enforcement guys don't come forward for the defense.
I was wasting my time.
Wasting your time doing what?
Investigating these idiots.
Can you be more specific about these idiots?
Jason Autry, Zach Adams, and Shane Austin, and Dylan Adams. I don't think they're capable of kidnapping a woman and keeping it secret for 2 years. I don't think they're capable of that. I don't think they're capable of doing arithmetic, much less this.
In August of 2012, Terry Dykes had a new supervisor come in, and that supervisor looked at the leads and looked at the way that Terry Dykes was doing that investigation.
Case agent on the case needed to be benched.
Why was he benched?
In my opinion, based on statements he made as well as statements other agents made to me, he had lost his objectivity. He had tunnel vision on a particular suspect and was not objective about all of the facts coming into the case.
I weighed the information that I had at the time, and I believe I'm objective.
To have the lead case agent who was removed from the case to take the stand and still saying during a murder trial that he still doesn't think that Zach Adams is guilty of this. That's something that's very hard to hear.
Dykes admits he does not know what evidence investigators gathered against Zach Adams and the others after he left.
But you can't tell us anything about the 3 and 4 years after that.
You're right. I don't know what y'all have done since then.
In a murder trial, it's usually the prosecutors pointing fingers, but in this case, the defense attorneys took a turn. They argue Zach Adams is the wrong guy. Somebody else kidnapped and murdered Holly Bobo. That guy, Terry Britt. And you don't have to go far to find him. He's sitting right up there on the witness stand.
Terry Britt, T-E-R-Y-B-R-I-T-T.
Terry Britt was a registered sex offender who lived fairly close to the Bobo home. He lived also very, very close to where some of her property was found later on during the search.
Would you tell the jury what you're currently incarcerated for?
Kidnapping, temporary.
Do you have other convictions in your history?
Yes, ma'am. Had a rape charge, a robbery charge.
I got on to him because, number one, he is the exact size of what our witness said the abductor looked like. Okay? His history tells me he's capable of kidnapping her.
Do you remember Terry Dykes coming out to talk to you about the disappearance of Holly Bobo on multiple times?
Oh, yeah, we all know Dykes, don't we?
Britt's history of rape, kidnapping, and firearms convictions made him such a strong suspect, the TBI got a subpoena to bug his home.
Were you aware that for the first time in the state of Tennessee, they had actually bugged your house?
No, ma'am.
But that extraordinary scrutiny of Britt yields no evidence to warrant an arrest, and he says he has an alibi.
Your wife, Janet Britt, was with you the entire day.
The entire day.
You were never apart from one another.
Never.
I checked his alibi and found out it was garbage.
Why did you think the alibi was garbage?
His cell phone called Janet's cell phone and talked to it for 2 minutes and 56 seconds. His alibi is not true. It's fabricated.
Okay.
Nevertheless, the Brits insist they were together the whole time and their alibi is legitimate.
Terry Dykes called me to go interview Terry Britt, and all Dykes wanted to know was if he is interested in talking about Holly Bobo and working out some kind of deal.
U.S. Marshal John Walker says he visits Britt, who is in prison on an unrelated charge, and lays out how he believed Britt committed the crime.
I said, I know you're a sociopath, I know you have issues with women, and I walked him through what we knew. He interrupted me and looked at me very, very straightforward and said, sounds like you have it all figured out. I'll plead to it and you can close the case.
Do you remember at one time offering to plead guilty to the murder of Holly Bobo if you could get a 20-year sentence?
No.
So you're saying that is not...
I'm saying that's a lie.
When I got up to leave, he stood up behind me and he said, if I need to show you something, how long will it take you to get me out of here? He wanted to take me and show me where the remains were at.
And did you relate all of this information to the TBI?
Yes, I did.
And as far as you know, did the TBI go back to follow up with an interview?
They didn't follow up the next few days like I told him that they were probably going to do. That did not happen.
Okay.
Well, I thought the next day they'd get the confession from him and find her remains. And then nothing happened. And I'm like, what do you mean nothing happened?
We asked the TBI about this. A spokesperson said because of the ongoing legal processes, they are not able to answer specific questions, but they remain confident in the investigation.
Did you have anything to do? Anything at all?
No, I did not.
With the abduction of Holly Bobo?
No, I did not.
The rape of Holly Bobo?
No, I did not.
Putting a bullet in the back of her head?
No, I did not. I wouldn't do that.
All right, you can step in.
Terry Britt leaves the witness stand, not a free man, but never charged in the Holly Bobo case. Now the jury is about to hear from the most compelling kind of witness, one who claims to be an eyewitness to murder. Is this the testimony that could send Zach Adams to death row?
At that time, boom, the gun went off. And it sounded like boom, boom, boom underneath that bridge.
Chilling testimony today in the trial of Zach Adams, one of the men charged in the murder of Holly Bobo.
The prosecution opened up with a somber message to the jurors saying Adams bragged about killing Bobo.
So far, there's no concrete evidence pinning Adams to the crime.
There is no DNA, no fingerprints, no video, no recordings.
His attorney insists the case against Zach Adams is flimsy, largely circumstantial, with little direct evidence connecting him to the crime.
There was no evidence. There's not one single strand of evidence that points to me or anybody, Dylan or Shane or Jason.
In the first 3 days of the state's case, none of the witnesses claimed to have seen Zach Adams with Holly Bobo. But that is about to change. On day 4, the state calls Jason Autry.
Jason Autry, for a long time, said that he was innocent. He had nothing to do with Holly Bobo's abduction, nothing to do with her rape, nothing to do with her murder.
I want to say one thing. I'm innocent of these charges.
I heard you say that earlier.
Right hand before God, I'm innocent, sir.
But then in late 2016, Autry changed his story.
We get a call from Jason Autry's attorney, and he informs us that Jason has been talking to prosecutors and that he's going to be testifying against Zach at trial.
Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes, sir.
There are witnesses, there are star witnesses, and then there's Jason Autry. From gavel to gavel, the entire 4th day of testimony is all Autry.
When I pulled in, there was a large fire burning in a burn barrel. Dylan Adams was standing at the door of the trailer with his shirt off. Shane was walking around in the yard hollering, "Y'all need to hurry up and get the goddamn hell out of here," with a firearm holstered on the right side.
And just details his entire day on April 13th like it was yesterday.
Autry says Adams tells him later that he and his brother and Shane Austin had kidnapped Holly Bobo and raped her.
He said, "I need you to help me bury this body." He said, "That's Holly Bobo."
Jason Autry testifies that he and Zach Adams brought Holly Bobo here to this long, winding dirt road that runs along the Tennessee River.
Autry says they take the body, which was wrapped in a blanket, and lay it on the ground.
I'm standing over the top of him, my hands on my knees. She being right here. And at that time, I see the foot move, and a sound of distress. It sounded like, come from the blanket. I told him, I said, "This is still alive."
Autry says he keeps a lookout while Zach gets a pistol from the truck.
And at that time, boom, the gun went off. And it sounded like boom, boom, boom underneath that bridge. It was just one shot, but it echoed underneath that bridge all the way down that damn river bottom. And when that gun went off, birds went everywhere, just all up under that bridge. And it just dead silence for just a second.
Autry says at that point he hears a boat motor and fears they'll be discovered.
We load the body back into the truck in the same fashion, shut the tailgate. We driving just erratic. Panic, just pretty much.
To hear him telling that story.
Anger. What I felt anger, sadness, because I thought he was my friend. Why would he lie on me?
The Bobo family told us in 2017 they believe Zach Adams is responsible for their daughter's murder and that Jason Autry's testimony rang true to them.
It did, and it matched what the prosecutors had also.
My cross-examination of Autry was everything. I mean, it was really important.
The defense attorney points out at the time Autry says the murder happened, he was on phone calls with his girlfriend and also his mother.
In the middle of all this, you were able to take a telephone call from your mother, Shirley King, that morning at 9:42, weren't you?
If your records reflect that, that's true.
Autry also mentions a burn barrel at Shane Austin's house.
55-gallon barrel with all the paint off of it, with flames shooting at the top of it, 3 to 4 foot high.
Shane's mother says there was no burn barrel.
Shane didn't have a burn barrel at his trailer.
Shane's mother also says Jason Autry was wrong about a fence at Shane's trailer.
The gate was open.
No, the driveway did not have a gate at that time. We did put a gate and a fence up, and it was June of 2011 after we bought Shane a puppy.
The prosecution basically adopted Jason Autry's story of what happened, but they left huge gaps in their prosecution, and they don't explain who it was that came and abducted Holly. They don't explain how her body got at that cell tower.
Prosecutors argued at trial that Shane Austin could have been the one who took Holly.
Jason Autry is the best evidence that these prosecutors have in this case because they have very little physical evidence. They're banking on the jury completely, wholeheartedly buying his account.
Inside this courthouse, the jury is about to deliver a verdict. It could be a life or death decision for Zach Adams. Either way, it won't be the end of it.
Years later, a new investigation, another courtroom battle, and prison interviews. What Zach Adams and Jason Autry say now.
I'm not like I have no reason to.
When the verdict is announced, out of respect for this jury, I will tell you, I want you to contain your emotions. I want there to be no displays.
The jury deliberates 11 hours over 2 days and then finds Zach Adams guilty on all counts in the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Holly Bobo.
When you heard them read the verdict and they said guilty.
It was good. It was terrible. It was terrible. Worst day of my life, probably.
There'll never be enough punishment for him.
He don't deserve to be breathing the air that he's breathing today.
Zach Adams avoids a possible death sentence. In a deal with prosecutors approved by the Bobo family, he gets life in prison without parole, plus 50 years.
Who was that a picture of?
That's Holly and myself. That's Holly and her nursing student classmates just a few days before.
Karen Bobo, the woman who taught Zach Adams in the 4th grade, gives him a lesson on heartbreak.
I know that she begged for her life because my daughter loved and enjoyed life. But you chose to take that from her.
Tonight, a man accused of killing and raping Holly Bobo pleads guilty. Dylan Adams pleads guilty to a lesser offense, facilitating murder.
He now faces 35 years in prison without the possibility of parole.
3 years later, Jason Autry pleads guilty to lesser charges related to Holly's kidnapping and murder. And with credit for time served, he is set free.
His testimony was some of the most credible, persuasive testimony I've ever heard given in a courtroom.
The state had to make a deal with the devil to get Zach Adams prosecuted. In my opinion, all three of them should be hanging in this big oak tree on the backside of this courthouse.
From his prison cell, Zach Adams has tried and failed over the years to have his conviction overturned. Now, he is trying again.
You hear people say that they're innocent all the time in jail, in prison.
Yeah.
So people are skeptical. What do you say to those people?
He said the person was, what, 5'9", 200 pounds? It wasn't Jason Autry. He's 6'6". Could have been me. I was 6'3", 125 pounds. My brother's 6'2", 125 pounds. The person in the abduction there wasn't one of us. I mean, he didn't match the description of any of us.
A flurry of legal filings beginning January 2024 lay out why Zach Adams says he deserves a new trial and why prosecutors say he does not.
April 2024, a hearing at the Hardin County Courthouse.
The court's going to order that the temporary order placing these exhibits under seal is to remain in effect.
Adams' new attorney is there and some familiar faces, trial prosecutor Jennifer Nichols and the Bobos.
Zach Adams is searching for new evidence, new witnesses. He's being helped by Katie Spurko. She's a neuropsychologist and she's been re-examining the case against him.
How did you end up involved in this case?
The attorney who's representing Zach Adams, Doug Bates, is an attorney I've worked with before.
What was he looking for you to do?
He wanted me to review the case file, watch the testimony, and see if there were things that stood out to me in terms of whether someone was being honest or not.
Spurko says she is now working for Zach Adams' mother instead of his attorney.
As psychologists, we are trained on how to interview people to elicit accurate information.
Spurko provided 2020 with interviews she recorded during her investigation.
I want to know everything about you. I want to be able to look into your soul and know every single thing about you. I wanted to get a sense for what he was like, because he didn't testify. And I remember the first thing he asked me was if I thought he was innocent. And I said I didn't know yet.
Do you now think he's innocent?
I am so confident he's innocent. Hi, my name's Katie, and I'm so sorry to come here unannounced. I had your address and I didn't have your phone number.
Spurko looked for more information about former suspect Terry Britt, who was later cleared by the TBI. She went to see his wife, Janet, who still stands by her husband.
There was some evidence that came up with Terry regarding the Holly Bobo situation.
I don't see how, because he didn't have nothing to do with it. There's no way he could have went and kidnapped her. He was here with me. Just because he has a record, that doesn't mean he had anything to do with it.
Some of Katie Spurko's investigating has provoked a reaction from the prosecutor. In a court filing that includes an affidavit from Janet Britt, the prosecutor accuses Spurko of trying to intimidate Britt and of offering to show her confidential discovery files.
Spurko denies she tried to intimidate Britt and says the only files she offered to share were public records of Terry Britt's criminal history. Zach Adams' court filings also say Spurko found a witness who claims she saw Terry Britt behaving oddly the morning Holly was taken.
She said he was in a smaller truck and was kind of leaning over, had made eye contact with her and was leaning over, adjusting his body to block her view of his passenger seat.
Prosecutors say Adams' attorney and Spurko have not gotten a sworn statement from that witness, which they say the law requires before it can be considered.
Still ahead, the effort to free Zach Adams brings Katie Spurko face to face with the person who helped send him to prison.
He said, somebody's got to pay, Jason. He said that he's going to be you. Hell no, I ain't paying.
Forensic neuropsychologist Katie Spurko, now working for Zach Adams' family, has spent nearly a year studying his case file, watching the trial testimony, tracking down and interviewing witnesses. But the person she most wanted to talk to was the man many say sealed Adams' fate, Jason Autry.
Mr. Autry, raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give.
I found him to be such an engaging witness. And at the same time, there were aspects of his story that were red flags, just impossible.
Dylan Adams was standing at the door of the trailer with his shirt off. Shane was walking around in the yard with a firearm holstered on the right side.
Okay, so this is in 2017, and he's having a recollection. A friend goes around with a firearm, has it holstered on his right side. That's a really specific thing to remember.
That's my testimony, the truth.
There were just a lot of question marks for you.
Yes, he's going through the events of this day, minute by minute almost, with this crazy level of attention to detail and memory. That was a discrepancy that caught my attention.
After being released from prison for his admitted involvement in Holly Bobo's murder, it doesn't take long for Jason Autry to get in trouble with the law again.
Requesting assistance on Morris Road with a subject that has a rifle. Be advised the subject has taken off running.
Well, 2 months later, after they let him out of jail, he gets caught in the neighboring county with a firearm.
Well, breaking news now. The man who served time for the killing of Holly Bobo has been arrested once again, this time in Benton County in a field there.
There he goes, back to jail, and then he's still there to this day.
Autry ultimately pleaded guilty to these new weapons charges and remains behind bars awaiting sentencing in that case.
Back in 2017, Jason Autry told the jury that spellbinding story of what happened to Holly Bobo under the I-40 bridge right here at the banks of the Tennessee River. But what's he saying now? That's what Katie Spurko had to find out if Zach Adams was going to have any hope at all.
My name is Jason Autry.
There you go. Thank you.
When you went to see Jason, what were you hoping was going to come from that conversation?
I was just super curious what he would be like, if he would talk to me, what he would have to say. Can we just start at the very beginning of when he first started getting questioned related to the Bobo case? I asked him, what did you do that day? And he gave me what seemed like a really honest answer.
No, I couldn't tell you what I done that day.
Yeah.
Katie Spurko provided ABC News with this video, and it's the first time it's being seen publicly.
I want to know your whole experience. How did it get from you being arrested for this to you being on the stand and telling this crazy story?
So a lot of this in the beginning was just all routine questions.
Autry says that when he told his attorney that he intended to fight the charges and go to trial, he got an answer he wasn't expecting.
He said, I got you about a 95% chance. You spend the rest of your time right over. You know, what do they want? You know, I need to know what they want. What do they want from me?
Yeah.
I want you to justify. Straight up about it.
What does he tell you?
Tells me he made the whole thing up. Took the phone records and the case file and put together what he did that day to craft a story that fits in with the evidence that exists and cannot be changed.
I said, well, what if I say all I seen was just a body, you know, laying in the back of the truck? It's not enough to get you out.
Why would someone admit to killing someone if they didn't do it?
He's sitting in jail for years. He's being told that Zach's gonna be telling a story against him, and basically it's this or the death penalty. And so under that amount of pressure, I think a lot of people would have folded the way he did.
And he said, I need you to help me bury this body. And he said, that's Holly Bobo.
You're an engaging witness.
Well, I was trained.
I could tell you were trained. I'm on the witness stand a lot.
Yeah.
I know. I was trained witness.
Yeah.
Who was doing the training?
Jennifer Nichols.
Yeah.
She was the boss of it all.
Zach Adams' defense team made this claim in their legal filing, and we reached out to Jennifer Nichols about it. She denied the allegation, telling us that it is a false statement. The only guidance ever given to Jason Autry was to tell the truth. There was no training.
That's the worst that I've ever felt in my life, coming back, knowing that you just lied and put an innocent man in prison.
Now he has no benefit to be gained other than morally to address the remorse. This isn't helping him whatsoever. He's facing sentencing on federal gun charges.
But it's important to remember that one way or another, Jason Autry is an admitted liar. And prosecutors argue that Autry's recantation should not get Zach Adams a new trial, saying Mr. Autry's credibility was thoroughly impeached during cross-examination at trial and that the jury was aware of inconsistencies in his testimony. They also contend that Autry's testimony was vetted and corroborated.
What do you think of the fact that Jason recanted his confession?
I'm glad. I'm glad he's telling the truth. It's about time. I wish he would have never lied in the first place.
So what does this mean for Zach Adams? Is there a chance Jason Autry's new story could set him free?
A request for a new trial for a man convicted in the 2011 murder of a Holly Bobo.
I mean, so I'm in here for something I didn't do, so I'm hopeful.
This case is a tragedy. There was never a day in that courtroom that I didn't feel for Karen Bobo.
And you have shown absolutely, look at me please, you have shown absolutely no remorse for anything that you have done.
At sentencing, Holly Bobo's mother, there was that very dramatic moment where she wanted to speak to you and look you face to face, eye to eye.
Well, she felt like she was talking to the person that took her daughter's life, but she don't realize that I'm not that person. They're the real victims of all this, but they need to know that we didn't have anything to do with it. And if I knew anything, I would have helped any way I could have.
Before this happened to Holly, we lived in what we thought was one of the safest communities. The day that Holly was abducted, not only was something taken from us, it was taken from our whole county, community, and the surrounding counties.
The goal was to get justice for Holly, and I feel like that happened. And obviously it didn't bring her back. There will still be sad, but there is a little peace in knowing that the people that did this to her will be in jail.
But now there are questions about whether one of those people, Zach Adams, will remain behind bars.
A request for a new trial for a man convicted in the 2011 murder of a Holly Bobo.
Zach Adams' team will now need to convince a judge that Jason Autry's new story amounts to new evidence that would have changed the jury's verdict.
Jason Autry recanted his testimony, and that would give Adams an alibi for Bobo's murder.
We reached out to Jennifer Nichols, the prosecutor in this case. She declined our request for an interview, but sent us a statement that says in part, "At trial, we presented proof through 62 witnesses and 250 exhibits. The jurors heard testimony of Zachary Adams' confessions to multiple and unrelated individuals. Today, nearly 8 years after the verdicts, I remain confident in the jury's verdicts of Zachary Adams' guilt."
We understood, when the trial and sentence and everything took place, that there'd be a number of events down through the years. We're going to be patient because we still are seeking justice for our beloved Holly.
Holly was always about helping someone. Whatever Holly did, she put forth her best effort. And it was just in her soul to be that kind, loving, nurturing person.
It's been more than 13 years since Holly's passing, and her legacy still remains. A stretch of Tennessee highway has been dedicated in her honor. And Holly's cousin, country singer Whitney Duncan, recorded a song to honor Holly.
I wanted to convey a message of she's not hurting anymore. You know, she is in a better place. But I know she's watching down and she sees everything. And she is happy.
After Holly's death, the Bobo family established a scholarship in her name for other nursing students.
As for Zach Adams, a hearing is scheduled next month when a judge is going to consider some of his legal filings. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
Sheriff Barber's office.
Hi, this is Valerie Haythorne.
Yeah.
I'm at her house. It is covered in blood.
Hold on a second.
I need somebody out here.
We have 2 children missing, the woman that lives at a house, and now a neighbor friend, all missing.
Excuse me, 4 people in a remote part of Ohio? That just doesn't happen.
Everywhere we go, dead end. Dead end. Dead end. We have 0 suspects, 0 evidence. All we know is that we have 4 missing people. There's a lot of blood. It's pretty much a race against time to find anybody alive.
Are they alive? Are they dead?
The first thing that I am struck by is there are tons of leaves everywhere. This is an unbelievable set of circumstances. It's like a house of horror. I'm sorry.
Sheriff Barber's office.
Hi, my name is Valerie Haythorne. And I work at a Dairy Queen. I'm the general manager out there. One of my employees did not show up for work this afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Which is totally uncharacteristic of her. She's not answering her phone, which is totally uncharacteristic. She's not answering her text.
Tina is a single mom. She has 2 children from a previous relationship, Sarah and Cody. She's a wonderful employee, always on time, make sure that she does a good job. On Wednesday, November 10th, she doesn't show up. The manager, who's worked with Tina for a long time, said this is so unusual for her not to be here. She would always call or text if she wasn't coming.
Knox County only has about 65,000 people. Knox County is the type of place where you grow up, you know everybody. People go to school together, people work together. So her manager called the police and said, something's wrong here.
The sheriff's office sends a deputy out to Tina's house. He sees the blue Ford F-150 in the driveway, assumes that maybe she's there, goes up and knocks on the door. There's no answer. Doesn't see her, doesn't see anything unusual. So he decides that he's going to check on it at the end of the shift. He goes back at 11 p.m. and he notices that the blue Ford F-150 is gone. Bangs on the door really loud, looks in the windows, can't see anything, so he assumes that she had come home, got into her pickup truck, and took off. The next day, Tina fails to show up for work again.
The manager goes to her house thinking, hey, I just need to make sure that everything's okay. She does a welfare check. And that's when she realizes, wait a minute, something's not right here.
She's so worried that maybe something happened. She walks around to the back of the house and she notices that she can get into the house through one of the back windows. She has no idea what she's about to find.
Sheriff Barber's office.
Hi, this is Valerie Haythorne.
Yeah.
I'm at her house. It is covered in blood.
Okay, hold on a second.
I need somebody out here.
Okay, let me transfer you. Hold on.
She continues into the house, and as she turns to go down the hallway towards the bathroom and the bedrooms, she stops. And she looks and she sees what appears to be blood on the carpet, oil stain, and this makes her believe something awful happened.
Hey, I've got Valerie Hawthorne on the phone. Okay. She's down at Kings Beach Drive. That's where that female's missing from. She got into the house and said the whole place is covered in blood.
Word is spreading very quickly that there is a lot of blood at Tina Herman's home.
Manager from the Dairy Queen, who had permission to enter her house, came out, did enter the house, saw blood in a couple areas of the house.
It was not something that I would want anybody else to have walked into.
Here's a picture that was taken during crime scene processing of some of the blood and that on the floor. You know, we see the blood, we know that something violent happened at the house, but not sure exactly what we have. This is a picture of the blood-stained bathtub. Oh, it's pretty messy. They called BCI, the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation, to have their agents come out and process the crime scene. And when they arrive at Tina's house, just as they're getting there, Tina's boyfriend shows up. He advises them that he lives with Tina and that she has 2 children, Cody and Sarah. At this point, when who all is missing, Uganda, so we make contact with telling us that they were not in school on Thursday. Now we have 2 children missing and Tina, so all of them are missing at this point. The crime scene guys move into the garage and they see their Jeep parked in the garage. We run the license plate number and comes back to her neighbor, Stephanie. Now we've got, the woman that lives at a house, her 2 children, and now a neighbor friend that may be involved in this as well, and all missing, and no indication of where they are.
Excuse me, 4 people? In a remote part of Ohio? That just doesn't happen.
Over a dozen friends and neighbors gathered together this morning, scouring a wooded area in Knox County, looking for any sign of a missing family.
Here at a local gas station, they've posted a poster, pictures of the 4 people missing, and they're asked to call the Knox County Sheriff's Department if anybody has information.
Tina, by everything that I know about her, is really a good person, very dedicated worker, dedicated to her children. Just your regular mom, good person. Sarah's a typical 13-year-old girl. You know, she does well in school. Sarah loves to play different sports and things. Her younger brother, Cody, is 11 years old. Good kid, you know, just a typical boy, rambunctious and, you know, full of energy.
I worked at Dairy Queen, and that's where I first met Tina. Tina brings her kids, Sarah and Cody, to Dairy Queen with her to work sometimes, and they'll help us. And we just have fun talking to them, joking around with them, goofing off with them. You would like Tina. She is such a bubbly person.
Tina and Stephanie were very good friends. Not only were they neighbors, living close to each other, but they were friends. So Stephanie is around 41 and Tina is about 32 years old. So Stephanie was a little bit older, but they did things together. They went to the gym together. Matter of fact, that was the last place that they had, both Tina and Stephanie had been seen, was at the gym together that morning.
This was an initial shock because this doesn't happen in Knox County. This is a quiet community. There were people who know Stephanie, Tina, Sarah, Cody, and they are concerned about their whereabouts.
We don't know what the result of the violence in the home, whoever the violence was against, is still alive, or if they're dead. What happened to them? We have no idea. We have no idea where they are. It appears as though at least one of the victims is injured, most likely severely, and they would most likely need medical attention as soon as possible. But at this point, we weren't sure exactly what we had. We need to use the media to get the word out about our missing people. Get that out as quickly as we can, so instead of having just a limited number of eyes looking for Tina and the two children, we have the whole community.
I had just started at 10 TV like 3 weeks prior to this, and our assignment manager brings up the fact that we're getting word about several people missing, and we're just going to send somebody to go check it out. And then I got sent up. I can recall driving out here and just thinking in my head, what are we going to find out today? I get to the Knox County Sheriff's Office, and I could immediately tell there's something going on here. I think we've all experienced that point in life where you can sense something is wrong because it's too quiet. Usually when you arrive to police departments, usually there's a couple of people in the front, and it's a very active place. There was only one person at the desk. What I learned later on was that everybody was sent out. Because this case involved so many people, it was all hands on deck. The first press release or the second press release that came out said that there was a large amount of blood at Tina's home. And when you hear that as a journalist, you think, no, this is not a runaway case. There is a large police presence there, but no one really knows exactly the background of what happened. I look at my photographer and I say to him, is this really happening? Just because this is just not normal for 4 people to go missing. And he said to me, no, this is not normal at all. My goal in going there is to get as much information about who Tina Herman is, who Sarah Maynard is, who Cody is, who Stephanie is. Where are these people? And why aren't they responsive? Are they alive? Are they dead? Did they just randomly run away? No one just disappears.
I'm in the office in Columbus, Ohio. Harry called and said that they had a really horrendous crime scene. They hadn't determined a suspect yet. There was going to be a lot of interviews that needed to be done, and asked, who on the squad can come up and assist. My specialty on the task force was cellular phones, so I figured, well, I'm going to be working with cellular phones when I get here. So I'm tracing both Tina and Stephanie's phones, but they haven't been used. Where are they?
But what that tells us is that they're now no longer in communication with anybody. They're not using their cell phones. They're not making purchases. We're not finding them at home. It's almost like they disappeared off the face of the earth.
The community is on the lookout. They search trails along the Kokosing River. It's a search that's getting more and more desperate.
We need to, despite what the end result, we need to find them.
I think something bad happened.
Greg Borders still in shock that his live-in ex-girlfriend, Tina Herman, has seemingly vanished. Her two children, 13-year-old Sarah and 10-year-old Cody Maynard, along with family friend Stephanie Sprang, all gone too.
It's very frustrating. I mean, I'm sick to my stomach over this.
The suspects are obviously the boyfriends of both Tina and Stephanie.
She is dating a guy named Greg. Tina and Greg have been struggling, and Tina was looking to move out.
Anytime you have a case like this, you're always going to look at all of the familial relationships.
Tina's boyfriend says, hey, I left for work Wednesday morning. I had plans to go golfing with my friend. So after work, I spent the night at his house. Stephanie's boyfriend said, all I know is she didn't come home.
So I'm thinking, okay, well, I want to know what these boyfriends, do they both have phone numbers? Can I get their numbers? I need to get on top of their records and see if I can verify their statements.
Well, listen, I'm glad you came here because, we're going to talk to you just like we're talking to everybody. This is kind of what we do.
I literally have 2 stacks of phone records, one from Tina's boyfriend, one from Stephanie's boyfriend, and I'm looking at all of the use of their cellular phones over the last 24 to 48 hours.
Greg Borders hasn't heard from Tina since he got a text message on Wednesday.
Then on Wednesday, when you were working the overtime, she texted you around 11:30?
Yeah.
Was that on one of your lunch breaks or something? Or
I didn't see it. My next break was 12:12, and I had seen that she called when I was outside smoking a cigarette. She said she had fed the dog, and that was about it.
As we're looking at the boyfriend's phones, everything is checking out with what they're telling us. Their phones are using towers that would service the areas where they claim to be at, and they're not making calls that are unusual. So my associate detectives that are there running down leads on their alibis, we're all striking out. Striking out in the sense that, okay, well, these 2 guys are not our suspects. So now we're beginning to think, okay, who would do a crime with this level of violence? It's so personal. One by one, we're ruling out, your typical suspects. Tina and Stephanie didn't have any obvious enemies. Everyone that we're interviewing, coworkers, family members, friends, are not giving us any kind of indication that there's derogatory information about them, that there's any kind of spats going on, don't get along with a neighbor. These kind of investigations, they're pretty standard. You kind of go down those paths. We're following all of the regular paths, and we're not arriving with the suspects. So we've got a really horrendous crime scene, a really personal and violent crime, and everywhere we go, dead end. Dead end. Dead end. We have 0 suspects, 0 evidence, a total dead end, but all we know is that we have 4 missing people. It's pretty much a race against time to find anybody alive.
Sarah Maynard went missing Wednesday along with her mom, Tina Herman, her 11-year-old brother, Cody, and her mom's friend, Stephanie Sprang. Friends and neighbors are now searching for any sign of the missing four.
Got up early this morning to come out and see what we could do to help.
You know, you walk along and you see things. You might see a piece of trash and you wonder, well, you know, that was maybe just a piece of trash, but you never know.
In fact, we saw a shoe over there, but it's been buried for quite a long time.
The focus on the investigation is at Herman's house in Howard, where an aircraft with infrared technology is flying overhead.
We also have officers on quad runners, checking fields, checking the areas around here.
We need to locate them as soon as possible, and we need the community's assistance on that.
Whether the searches are organized or ad hoc, the community is on the lookout.
I think everybody just wants to keep the mood uplifted. We don't know. We can't say either way. We haven't heard anything, and we just got to keep praying and keep our heads up.
We're not sure exactly what happened, if there's a continued threat to other community members, so we want people to be on alert that we've had this incident in Apple Valley.
As the search intensifies, so does the fear in this community.
I think everyone's just kind of really scared that something like this could happen so close to home.
There's a lot of nervousness around the community. People still don't know, is there an active serial killer? Was this targeted? People just don't know. So how could this happen? There was a lot of confusion all across Knox County. There was a lot of confusion even for us as journalists because this doesn't happen.
We've got our heads down and we're just looking for more leads and trying to figure out what's our next move. What are we going to do next? If they're alive, we need to find them. The question now is how.
The crime scene guys are out in the garage in Tina's house, and they see a bag from Walmart.
They look at the receipt, and what do you know? The date on this receipt is November 11th at like 12:08 a.m. And the first indication that they were missing came in the afternoon on Wednesday, November 10th.
And we're looking at the receipt, and it occurs to us it could be obviously connected to the violence that we saw in the house. For some reason, somebody felt it necessary to go out at 12:08 a.m. and purchase garbage bags and a tarp.
This receipt is gigantic. I mean, this is the key break in the investigation. Because up to this point, we're hitting walls everywhere we turn.
This picture depicts the Walmart bag and some of the garbage bags and tarp that were found during the crime scene processing when they went into the garage, and the receipt that allowed us to know that the individual had gone to Walmart at 12:08 a.m. the night or early the next morning to make that purchase. The detectives drive out to Walmart. The Walmart security officer is able to pull up the video, and he is showing the detectives, this guy just came in, he walks directly to where the garbage bags and the tarps are. He walks over towards the deli on his way back to the front of the store to pay, purchases a turkey sandwich, and then he continues over to the cash register. There happen to be some shirts on sale right there by the cash register, and he grabs one and he goes up to the cash register. Unfortunately, he paid in cash.
So now we have a visual of a male, and it's pretty good video. So we have something to go on.
We're able to see this individual leave the Walmart and walk out to his car, which turned out to be a silver Toyota Yaris, and he drives away. We couldn't get a license plate number, but at least we had a make and a model, and immediately we decide that we're going to run this information, see how many Toyota Yarises we have in the Knox County area. There can't be that many.
Investigators are looking at registration records for that particular vehicle type in this particular county, come up with just a few, and they start sorting down through them, and lo and behold, they find an individual, Matthew Huffman. And that driver's license photo has Matthew wearing the camouflage shirt depicted in the Walmart security video. So this is like pennies from heaven. It's one of those things, it's just too unbelievable. The luck is starting to go our way. We got our guy, but if our suspect isn't the perpetrator, then we're back to square one. There's 4 people that are missing.
We're talking about 2 young children. How scared Cody and Sarah must be right now, if they're even still alive. You're talking now about several days they have been missing. People are anxious. People are nervous. People want answers.
So now we have a suspect, Matthew Huffman, and we pull up Matthew's information.
So we're finding out who he is.
We're able to see he had a criminal record.
He's got priors in Colorado, burglary, arson. He's been in prison.
And comes out after 6 years, and now he's back in Knox County. And he hooks up with a tree trimming company and starts cutting trees. Well, when they discovered that he had a criminal record, they fired him. Now Hoffman's unemployed and he's hanging out in Mount Vernon. His mom lives in Apple Valley, not too far from Tina's house. He's got a girlfriend at the time. They get into a fight, and he grabs the girl and pushes her up against a wall and tries to strangle her. She contacts the Knox County Sheriff's Office and makes a report, but she doesn't want to press charges against him. So they've got this report on file that he had assaulted her, his girlfriend.
There's information on the reports that provide us with his cell phone number. So then we're calling the cell phone company that provides service to his phone, verifying that he's the subscriber. And we, of course, have to get legal process search warrants in order to gain this information. So now it's a race against time to find Matthew. It's pins and needles. You're rush. We got to get the search warrant written. You're looking for that judge. You're going to wake him up. It's probably 3:30 in the morning right now. Once we get the judge's signature and the warrants get served on the service provider, they give us the information on the phone that we're looking at. We put that information into our equipment, and we go out and actively begin to search for the phone. We put all of the information in the Stingray. It's called a Stingray. So every time it sees a new cell tower signal, it registers with that cell tower. It says, "Hi, I'm a Sprint phone, you're a Sprint tower, and I see you," and they communicate a little bit. But our equipment is looking for one particular registration, one particular device ID. We've locked the phone up, and it's in the area of Matthew Huffman's known address. We kind of back off where we can see the house, we can still capture the signal. We notify SWAT. So Knox County has a multi-agency SWAT team. This is considered a high-risk entry that they're about to do. You know, we're investigating a possibly quadruple homicide because we really don't know yet. At the same time, we have a second team that's out at the lake out in Howard, Ohio. Matthew's mother still has a house out here, and we didn't know for sure whether Matthew was at his home in Mount Vernon or whether he was out here in Howard. And the thing is that at this point we know that Matthew's mother's home is less than a half a mile from the crime scene. You can see from the area here that the Maynard home, it sits off by itself. It's a quiet location, lots of woods around it. Go up a small hill here, less than half a mile away from the crime scene, is the house that Matthew Huffman's mother and stepfather lived in. So he was very familiar with the area.
We don't want to hit one place that might tip off Hoffman that we're looking for him, so we want to hit both locations at the same time.
We're going to wait until 8 o'clock. It's going to be light by that time. We'll hit both locations simultaneously and see if we capture him.
There's no guarantee that he'll be there, but those are the best two options that we have, and time is of the essence. Looking at the amount of blood and everything that was found at the home, we didn't know what we had, but we just knew that we had to move fast. Well, we left the sheriff's office and went to our two locations. We made contact with each other. And, hey, are you guys all set up? You ready to move? And we were all set to go. We had the warrants.
Eight o'clock comes. We don't have any idea what we're going to find when the doors come open. We don't know whether there's anybody else involved.
I'm excited, as I always am. There's an element of danger when you're about to potentially take somebody's freedom from them. You don't know how they're going to react, what you're going to find. We didn't know where the family members were. We didn't know how Hoffman was going to react. Was he armed? Was he going to start shooting at us? We had no idea. We were staging just down the road from Hoffman's mother's house. I'm leading the way. We got our guns out because we don't know what we're going to find.
It's huge. They're sitting in the truck, hunkered down, eyes on the house, running the gear. We don't want to get discovered. We're heading up to 0 hour. There's been a lot of investigation, a lot of late nights since November 10th, and it's the morning of the 14th. This could be it.
I'm at the mother's house, and at 8 a.m. we hit both locations and pound on the door. Hi. Let us in. And a couple other gentlemen came to the door and the credentials and said, "We're FBI. Matthew here."
Deputies are announced.
At this, we knew that Matthew had his mother's address, or were any of the family members there, so basically struck out at that home. I thought I'd call the other team at Hoffman's house, make contact, and see if they had any luck.
SWAT teams do a knock and announce. Matthew, come to the door. Matthew's at the door. Here's a mess, kind of disoriented. He lets us in. All moments of relief. There's no struggle, there's no fight. Almost as though he knew that this was going to happen.
I drive to Matthew's house in Mount Vernon.
Entering the house was really a bizarre experience. The first thing that I am struck by is there are tons of leaves everywhere. You step inside the front door, and right immediately off to your right is a big room, literally filled with a pile of leaves, probably 4 or 5 feet high.
I looked at one of the deputies and I said, "Have we checked that pile to see if there's anybody in there?" And they said, "Yes, we've searched that, but I want to show you some."
I'm looking through maybe a little sitting room into the kitchen, and there's some bizarre writing, painting on the wall.
He takes me into the kitchen. He walks over to the refrigerator, and there's a freezer on the top part of the refrigerator, and he goes, "Look at this." So he opens up the freezer. I'm looking at a couple of dead squirrels just laying there frozen. That was pretty earth-shattering.
The house is a disarray. It's just disheveled. There's not a lot of furniture. It's almost like it's a vacant structure. It's filled with stuff you don't expect to see in your house. It's very cold. This is November, and it's probably 40 or 50 degrees outside, and it's rainy, and there's obviously no heat. So, I mean, it's really chilly. It's damp. I walked into the bathroom, and every wall of the bathroom is lined with a plastic bag filled with leaves and stapled to the wall. Neatly, uniformly stapled to the wall.
I never saw anything like that.
This is like really bizarre stuff. You just don't see this kind of thing. It's just a huge pile of leaves stapled to the wall. It's just crazy. It's like a house of horror. I'm going to guess that house is probably 60 to 100 years old. It's an old house. It's been remodeled. Walls have been put up and taken down. So it's kind of, it's an odd floor plan. There's hallways that have been turned to closets, don't lead anywhere.
The longer it takes for the sheriff's office to find them, the less likely that person is going to be alive.
It took them a little bit of time to get through each one of the rooms. And they're coming to this last room, and there's furniture in front of it. It's like, okay, well, why do you have furniture in front of the door? That's an odd thing to block off a door. They cleared that stuff out of the way. And when you open that door, what you find is a very steep set of narrow steps leading down into this dank, dark basement. Well, it's a great hiding place, but who would want to be down there? As you go down those steps, you kind of get to like a little landing, and then you look off to your left, it's like a little root cellar. Within a few minutes, I was face to face with Sarah Maynard. I'm sorry. We've never found anybody alive like that. And it was unbelievable. I mean, we rescued this girl, and it was unbelievable. It gets communicated back on the police radio that, we've got a girl in the basement, and she's alive.
When we got confirmation from the sheriff's office that Sarah is alive and well, there was not one person in this town or in this community that didn't rejoice.
Those loud noises, boom, boom, get down. And I'm like, I'm confused. They laid there, still scared. I don't know what's going on. Is it somebody else here to hurt me? Because, I couldn't see nothing.
It is an image that's burned into my mind.
I seen a man standing in front of me and said, "You're about to be saved."
She is surrounded by leaves. There's blankets all around her. Her hair is kind of, she's got blonde hair, and it's just bedhead, it's just disheveled, and she's bewildered. She's like, a big-eyed doe, she's just bewildered.
Not even like 5 minutes later, they all came running down the steps. And all I remember is I seen helmets and black suits. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Her hands were in socks and wrapped with duct tape. She was tied up like that was to take away her dexterity so that she was not able to untie her bindings or escape, turn a lock, turn a doorknob.
I went to sit up and they said, if you're Sarah Maynard, let me see your hands. And I put my hands up, still tied. And they said, we're not here to hurt you, we're here to save you.
This young girl has lived through an unbelievable experience the last 3 days, and she's being rescued. It had to be surreal.
Just was confused. I'm like, am I just seeing something, or is this real?
I recall her being quiet. I don't remember her having tears. I don't remember her even saying a word. I think that she was just awestruck.
I was too overwhelmed. Everybody was asking me a bunch of questions. You know, I'm still a little girl. You know, I'm a kid. And I'm still scared. I don't even know how to talk. Really, you know, they're wanting all these answers, and I don't really know what to say.
She has no idea what has happened to her family. She's worried about Cody.
You know, I'm super cold, and all I want to do is escape. That's the only thing I kept thinking is I just want to escape. I was so mind blown by everything going on. I didn't even know what day it was. I didn't even know. I forgot the date. Didn't know what time it was. I just had laid on the bed of leaves tied up. There was no window. It was pure dark. 100% dark. I feel like it was so dark that a lot of times he came down there to check on me. I hadn't even seen him because it was so dark down there. I would hear the door open. I just felt he was just going to end up killing me. That's all I kept thinking. Hopefully somebody finds me.
We were so freaked out by the fact that, oh my gosh, even with this horrendous crime scene, even with everything we had seen up to that point, we have Sarah and she's alive.
I was free. I know I was free. But I was still scared.
They've arrested Matthew and they've located Sarah, but we still have 3 people missing.
Now, you know, it's doubling down on the search of the house. Maybe we're going to find somebody else.
I go back up the stairs and I'm walking around the house.
The SWAT team does room by room search. SWAT's cleared the house. Immediately, though, you go from joy to where the heck are these other people at?
They take me to the hospital, and then I'm sitting there, and then there's a TV on, and they have my story on the TV.
Sheriff, are you still treating this as a missing persons, or is this now a murder investigation?
As of right now, we have no one that we are aware of who is deceased, so it continues as a missing persons investigation.
I'm like, oh, that's my mom. That's my brother. And then Stephanie, and I'm like, what the heck? We're missing.
The minutes feel like hours. The hours feel like days. And the days are feeling like weeks.
We still have 3 people missing. We've got Tina missing, we got Stephanie missing, and Cody missing. I need to find out those answers so we know what we need to do to recover them.
Even after Matthew Hoffman was arrested, the story still wasn't over.
The Basement, A Vanishing in Apple Valley concludes tomorrow night at 10. And if you or someone you know has been affected by what you've seen tonight, find advice and support at channel5.com/helplines. On 5, can tech prevent crime before it's happened? Person of interest, stream now on 5. Next, emergency call out.